What's up, Forest Park? Let me introduce myself really quick. Once again, my name is Matt Rose. I'm the new campus pastor at our North Campus. I'm gonna keep introducing myself over the next couple of weeks, even months, just because I know that you may not watch this video, or you may watch another video, or you may not watch that video, but you see this one. So ultimately, I just want you guys to know who we are, because a movement is about to happen at the North Campus. And this week, I was just thinking in my mind about so many different things, how I respond to different situations, how I talk to people when they say something to me. And I was so convicted because as we've been going through Colossians on Sundays over the past couple of months at this point, Paul is very clear that there should be a different Christian response to people and to hard situations in life than what we would naturally respond to. And I was convicted this week because I was thinking about how Paul calls us to live. In Colossians 3, verse 12, here's what it says. I'm going to give you the King James because I really like the way it says it. It says, "Therefore, as God's elect, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with bowels of mercy, kindness, and several other positive qualities." I found it interesting because we tend to translate that as clothe yourselves with affection, or niceness, or tender mercies. But what Paul says, especially in the King James, let me give you the Greek. He says the term, clothe yourselves with splachna. What's interesting about splachna? Splachna literally means the bowels, your liver, your, whatever else is down there. I'm not a doctor, but clothe yourselves with these things. And I found it interesting because what Paul is saying here is that we should be so physically impacted by somebody else's pain or frustration that we become empathetic and compassionate toward them. And here's where I got a little frustrated with myself. Think about it. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a rise in COVID-19 cases here in the Joplin area. And my first response, my natural tendency to respond was with, elevated heart rate. I was breathing a little more deeply. My chest was acting up. My shoulders were tensing up. I was stressed out and anxious, even angry in some cases when I saw people not wearing masks. And a lot of us find ourselves in that place where our first response is up here. It's anxiety and anger and frustration based on think about when you watch the news. What happens? Your heart rate elevates. You get anxious or you get angry, depending on the news channel you're watching at the time. Our natural response so often is one of fear and concern because we're thinking about ourselves. But what Paul says is that we should clothe ourselves with tender mercies. We should clothe ourselves with splachna, with our bowels of mercy toward one another. That our first response shouldn't be one about concern for ourselves, but it should be one about concern for somebody else. And he's already given us proof in Colossians what that looks like in the person and work of Jesus, that he wasn't concerned about himself, but he took nails in his hands for us. And so what does it look like for you this week, today, right now, to not immediately think about how you're negatively impacted by something that occurs around you, but you immediately jump to empathy, compassion, tender mercies that you, from the gut level, are feeling on behalf of somebody else? That's what the church is called to look like. And when we hear about the increase in COVID cases, what would it look like for us to pray for those people who have COVID-19? What would it look like for us when we get home, right? Think about it. You come home, maybe you're a husband, maybe you're a wife, you come home, your spouse wants to chat with you about your day. What would it look like instead of you saying, "I want downtime, sweetie," this is me, I'm sorry. "I want downtime." What would it look like for you to get out of yourself for a second, clothe yourself with some tender mercies from the gut level and think, "Man, how can I make her happy right now? Man, how can I ask her about her day? What can I do to think about the other person rather than myself?" And I know it's hard, but I think if we could do that, it would be so helpful. Guys, I think this is what God's calling us to. This is what Paul says. So I want to encourage you to lean into that, this splachna, this gut level response for somebody else, as opposed to this anxiety for ourselves.